and a very nice afternoon. My name is Els. For those of you who join us for the first time, let me give you a little bit of a background to this session. A number of us working for One Point Consulting or meditating on a regular basis. The meditation we practice is called Raja Yoga. It's the yoga of the mind. We started a project called 1 Oneness as we felt it was important to share some of these meditation practices with a wider audience. The project was launched in May 2020, and that was in the middle of the pandemic, the lockdown, and COVID. This was a period marked by serious worries about people's health, including issues such as depression and anxiety, fear, stress, and uncertainty. These half-hour oneness sessions are facilitated by experienced meditators from diverse backgrounds and from around the world. The sessions involve discussions and topics such as the power of the mind, the importance of resilience, learn how to meditate, etc. And they include a brief meditation exercise. So far, we have had more than 120 guest speakers who have contributed to this project, and we hope that many individuals will take benefit. All sessions have been recorded and they are available on YouTube. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome Gayatri Naraine, who joins us from New York City. Gayatri is an author, a speaker, and a student of lifelong learning. She has been practicing and teaching Raja Yoga meditation for many years. She is dedicated to developing spiritual life skills and integrating them into practical life. Gayatri is engaged in a United Nations project, the 17 United Nations Goals for Sustainable Development. She looks after 5 of these goals, namely peace, people, planet, prosperity, and partnership. She is, in this context, a part of a team that explores transformation as a universal principle. Gayatri also serves as the Vice Chair to the International Day of Yoga Committee of the United Nations. She is the co-author of a book, Something Beyond Greatness, Conversation Between a Man of Science and a Woman of God. So the topic for today is Light a Candle, Don't Curse the Darkness. So very warm welcome to you, Gayatri.
Thank you very much, Els. And it is my great pleasure to be with you at this point of time in our human history, in which 2023 is giving us a picture that are taking us into places of deep reflection. When I was asked to share with you, I chose this topic to light a candle and don't curse the darkness. Now, this saying actually comes from China. It is a Chinese proverb, and it literally takes us into a reflection that is asking us to explore a major possibility. And that possibility is, can I look at the problem and not complain about it? But could I look at the problem with a different lens? Maybe a lens of possibility. And so I feel that 2023, as we're coming to the end of it, is maybe asking us to go within, to explore this light that we all learn about when we embark on a spiritual path of Raj Yoga, and to discover, is there another way of responding to what we are confronting on a daily basis? The world is indeed like a village. And what happens to my neighbor, I have to see it, I have to feel it, and I have to engage with it at a certain level. But how I choose to do this is something that perhaps a spiritual path is telling me there's another way that you can respond. Also, as we look at the darkness, and this is where I want to start, what is this darkness I'm talking about? The darkness that we live in is a darkness of trauma. And this trauma is showing up in our lives as pain. There is pain in the future, and we call it anxiety, because it is experienced as grave uncertainty. There is pain in the present, and we call it hurt or grief, and it is experienced as disappointment or sadness. And then there is a pain of the past that is called anger, and that is experienced as guilt, as a form of depression, but what it's experienced as an inner depletion, an inner void, an inner emptiness. So in this darkness, in this realm of darkness, and these are just three very general ways of describing the darkness, the light is that silver lining, the silver lining in the dark clouds. And so it is not just looking through the darkness to find that silver lining, but am I that silver lining? When I'm aware of being a spiritual being, when I'm aware of this consciousness that is called soul, is that the way that I could touch this silver lining, because I become it? And so I'd like to start off exploring the light by me, the soul, I, the individual, I, the being. I am that candle. And I am the candle that is moving in this darkness. I am the silver lining. And I am, when I can connect to the silver lining, I'm able to discover a new lens of responding to the darkness that is overpowering us moment by moment. St. Francis of Assisi, I was in Gubbio, Italy, many, many years ago, and I made sure I visited the place of St. Francis of Assisi, because we know that St. Francis of Assisi was a great meditator, and wherever he meditated, this place was worth visiting. So I visited this place, and I encountered this saying that really is very profound. And the saying was, all the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle. And I reflected on that, and I said, gosh, what he's actually talking about is many, many single candles. And when we were aware of ourselves as spiritual beings, souls, we come face to face with being that candle. So what does it mean to be a candle in the darkness? And rather than be consumed by the darkness and curse our fortune and cancel out a destiny worth living for and becoming a victim, can I just be the candle? Can I just be that lit candle and look through the darkness? Because remember, the darkness cannot extinguish that candle, cannot extinguish the light of soul consciousness. So what does it mean to be that candle? Being a candle is an aspirational feeling. And that aspirational feeling tells me that the circumstances that I'm living in can improve. But the way they will improve is through my persistence. And my persistence is not so much in fixing what is going wrong, but my persistence is to recognize that there is at least as much good as there is bad. And so I cultivate a vision of seeing that which is good as I move through the darkness. So rather than cursing the darkness, I'm lighting this candle. I'm moving through with this vision of looking for the good, of seeing the good, of connecting to the good in me. I also, as a candle, I choose to be deliberate. And I choose to be deliberate in what? I choose to be deliberate in fostering positive thoughts. Positive thoughts means that even in the face of dire situations and circumstances, there's a choice point. I can either be consumed by the situations and circumstances, or I could step away from it a little bit, move within, go to that sacred space within, ignite the light, and create. I will choose to create rather than become a victim of. I will deliberately create thoughts that are constructive. Sometimes people say to me, but I cannot create positive thoughts when you're in dire situations. And I say to them, if you cannot reach deep enough to be positive, then at least create constructive thoughts. Create thoughts, cultivate thoughts that would build something new. Create and cultivate thoughts that would give you a sense of strength that you're accessing from within you. Also, one of the things about lighting the candle is that, and to remain lit, is to spend time. And it could be throughout the whole day. It doesn't have to be only when I am, I have the time to do it, but I could integrate moments of my day. And I call these moments as moments of serenity. These moments allow me to pause. And in the pause, I access strength. So I call it power in the pause. So when I go into the pause, when I use those moments to connect, there's a sense of contentedness that I encounter within. A contentedness that life goes on, that, no matter what is destroyed, somehow life is immortal. And the immortality of life takes over. And it is as if I move away from the mortality of living. We are told that we are light, and these lights are immortal. And we're told we are immortal beings living in mortal bodies. But you know about how we live our lives? We're living our lives as mortal beings in mortal bodies. And so we live in the fear of death, of anything that can happen to us. We're living in fear. And so when I move in those moments of serenity, and I recognize that connecting to this thing called soul, connecting to myself as a soul, is connecting to the life force. And this life force is immortal. And so it acknowledges in me that there is a strength, there's a resilient strength in each and every one that we could draw on, no matter how challenging the situation or circumstances may be, no matter how dark a time I'm living in. Another thing about choosing to be the light, be the candle, is to help us improve coping skills. There's one thing, people don't like to be told they're coping with life. And of course, it is such a condescending thing to say to anyone, you're coping with life. But when something goes wrong with my body, for instance, when I'm sick and especially if it is something that creates a helplessness within me, then I could succumb to that illness very quickly. And then I start grappling. How do I cope with this? What do I do? Who do I turn to? What do I trust? And of course, many, many, many suggestions may come your way, because today you just Google and you get 100,000 different options. But I think that being the light for yourself shows you spiritual coping skills. And I think one of the coping skills that we develop by being the light and not being consumed by the darkness of illness is we engage in more healthy behaviors and healthy habits. And when we're able to grow these healthy habits and behaviors, then we begin to appreciate the true meaning, because we are experiencing them, the true meaning of what it means, well-being. What does well-being mean? You know, we do something at the UN that is called Yoga, Health, and Well-being. And so what does that mean to me as a person coping with a major illness in my life? What does well-being mean? And how is it connected to healthy behaviors and healthy habits, of my awareness of what I need to do for this body, of my attitude toward the body? What does quality of life mean? And what does a sense of purpose mean? Because all of these are called into being, or called into us looking at, to reflect on, when we suddenly feel that we're no longer in control. So being the light gives us a sense of control, a control over the darkness, so that we can live with the light and we don't have to be, clouded by this darkness. But finally, I would say that being the light helps us to develop a maturity that teaches us to respond to life in a way that is meaningful and in a way that is strengthening. It also gives us a kind of capacity, we call it spiritual capacity. And this spiritual capacity, of course, makes us think differently, feel differently, understand differently, and it also allows us to discern and decide differently. And so we take actions differently. So being the light, being the candle in the darkness, all of these characteristics makes us see that, there's something in the way we show up as candles that make the sun proud of us. I was sharing this with someone, and he said to me, he said, what is a candle? When you take a candle and put it in front of the sun, what is it like? What does it mean? And I say, of course, the strength of the candle in front of the sun is almost nothing. But just think about connecting that candle to the sun and drawing on the light of the sun. What would it make us? And this is another aspect of being the candle, the connection to the sun, the connection to the light. So I don't feel I'm a lonesome light traveling in the darkness, but I am a single light connected to the sun, and therefore connected to all the other traveling lights. And so I would say that, in conclusion, that when I choose to be the candle, then I take back control of my life. If I choose to be consumed by the darkness, then the darkness envelops my life. A few years ago, just before the COVID pandemic, I was in Jerusalem, and I visited Bethlehem. And during my visit to Bethlehem, I encountered a child. Actually, there were 3 children selling tea. And I went up to them because I felt, oh my gosh, these kids shouldn't be selling tea. So what I'll do, I'll go and I'll just buy their whole tea. I'll ask them, how much is it? And I'll just buy it. And I went up to them and I said, how much is all this tea? How much does it cost? And they're looking at me, they're not answering. And I said, I want to buy it all. And one of the girls went like that, no. And I said, why? She says, no, I'll give you a cup of tea. And we had an interpreter. I'll give you a cup of tea. You could buy a cup of tea, but you can't buy the whole tea, all of the tea. And so I was very curious. So we then entered into conversation with them, asking them what they were doing, and they were telling us a little bit. And then there came a time when we said, okay, could we have a picture with all of you, a photo? And then the person who was with me translating, she sat, and one of the girls sat in her lap. So she invited the girl to sit in her lap. And then I looked at the one who was communicating with me, and I said to her, I'm looking at her, I haven't said anything to her. And then all of a sudden, she ran toward me and she jumped in my lap and she sat. And then I looked down in her face. And as I was looking down in her face, I looked into her eyes. And suddenly I felt that she was a candle and I was a candle. And we were shining something in each other's souls. And now that I look at what's happening in that region of the world, when I remember that scene, I don't see the darkness, but what I see is the connection of the 2 lights. And I feel the safety, and I hope she is feeling that safety. Because when we're connected to God as the supreme light, there's a special kind of safety that is felt. And I think that safety is connected to the immortality of being souls, of being lights, of being the candles connected to the sun to eliminate the darkness. And so I'll close now with a meditation, actually a reflection. And I'll ask you to join me in this reflection. We are lights, immortal beings. We are life, eternal beings. We are candles, moving through the darkness, staying above the clouds, connected to the supreme light, the source. The soul is called the third eye. And when the soul is connected to the source, the light of God, the light of the divine, gives the soul the power to see differently. The soul connects to its fellow human beings also as living lights. And the soul sees in its fellow human beings. A connection of love, a connection of being children of one God, a connection of a spiritual bond. Seeing with the light of soul consciousness. I see what is true. I see what is real. I see possibilities. And I respond from an inner strength, from an inner wisdom. A strength that makes me fearless, and a wisdom that makes me kind. Our world needs our light. Our world needs us to be holistic. So that we can remove the divisions. Our world needs us to be the healing power. Our world needs us to remove her pain. Let us not curse our world. Let us be the lights to gradually remove her darkness and to return her to a beautiful, wonderful, magical place to be. Om Shanti, peace, shalom, salam, paz.
Thank you, Gayatri, for this very special meditation experience, and also sharing your thoughts on this topic. Before we close, I would like to ask you a question. Several people are telling us that we would like to embark on this journey of meditation reflection, but we find it very difficult to control the mind, to discipline the mind, and to find time in our busy lives even to practice a few minutes of silence. Is there any tip you can give them, or any of your experience which will help us or which will help them on their journey of meditation?
I think I shared in what I just said that one thing I do as a discipline, and I deliberately do it because it's the way I foster positive thoughts. It's the way I redirect my mind and my thoughts and feelings away from what's going on the outside, and I bring it back in to access that silver lining, to access that strength. So I look for the slither of light, or I look for that silver lining, and I connect to that. And the way that's done is that you don't really need to set aside a lot of time to do it, especially people who are very busy. But it's as though you're breathing. It's just that when you breathe, you don't need time to breathe, right? You're naturally breathing. So to just take a minute, and I call that minute, these moments of serenity. I take my moment of serenity and I move within, connect to that silver lining, be the candle, and be the living candle, and connect to the source, to the sun. So you're drawing strength into you. And I call that putting power in the pause. So I pause in order to bring the power of spirituality and integrate it in my every fiber of my being, not just at the level of forcing and controlling my thoughts, but really in my entire being. And the power in that pause will make me relax physically. It will redirect my thoughts to something constructive if I can't even think positive. And what I will begin to do is to cherish those moments of serenity. And I will know that those moments of serenity, if I don't do them, I have given myself away to situations and circumstances, and I'm no longer in control. But those a few minutes that I would take to center myself and reconnect would show me that, you know, I can make a difference. I can have a different response. I can be in control of my horse-like mind that is running away. And so you begin to appreciate what spiritual strength is, and the strength that that gives you to cope with just everyday things that are going on.
Okay, thank you, Gayatri. That's really very helpful. So everyone who is joining us now, I hope you have enjoyed this session. Thank you so much to the technical team. Gayatri, thank you for joining us from New York City. And I wish you all a very nice day. Thank you. Goodbye.